Right. Okay. So today we're going to talk about Polari. For anybody that doesn't know me, and all of you do, but just, for the sake of the recording, my name's Caitlin. I'm the events manager for the society. Pronouns are she, her. So I'm going to go through like what Polari is, a little bit of sort of historical context, and then I'm going to give you some Polari words, and basically you're going to shout out what you think they mean, and then we're going to discuss what they mean and where they come from. It's not really a quiz in the sense that I'm taking points, but if people want to like take their own points, if you're like interested in doing that, then feel free. But I obviously can't give you any prizes, so you will just have the ego of winning, because I'm not actually allowed to give you anything. But yes. So Polari is a sort of secret language that's made up from a sort of ever-changing collection of slang from lots of like different sources. There's lots of Italian, there's lots of English as well, so there's a lot of backward slang, which we'll talk about later what that like means, but it's basically just like they take the word backwards and just pronounce it backwards. And rhyming slang, a lot of it comes from like Cockney rhyming slang, a lot of circus slang, canal speak, and Yiddish and Romani languages. So it started in the 17 to the 1800s. It was used by vagrants, who are basically just people who wander from place to place and beg. That's like how they make their money. And itinerant performers, who are basically just the same thing, except they perform instead of begging and just sort of travel around and find work. Sailors and travellers, and then many of the words come from the Romani people that lived across Europe around the time. And then in the 18th century, it was used mainly in pubs around the London dock area. So a lot of the words are quite, like, either use Cockney rhyming slang or are quite London sounding. Like a lot of the words that we use today, I wouldn't necessarily use, but somebody who was from London might do. And it was picked up by merchant seafarers, because obviously it was used around the dock area and then was sort of brought around the world and then was used on ships, which is pretty cool. So it travelled a pretty long way. And then from the 1930s to the 1970s, it was used mostly in gay pubs and in theatre and on ships. And then in the 50s and the 60s, it was sort of first recorded to be used by queer people. It was mainly gay men, because most of the criminalization that we have of sexuality is of like homosexuality. So they sort of use that to keep their sexualities a secret. So some of the words are still used today, although usually in different contexts, but not always. And in London, there were two different types of Polaris. There was like a West End dialect that was based a bit more on theatre speak, that was a bit posher, and then the East End dialect was based a bit more on canal speak and boat speak. And then in the 1970s, it started declining because the 1967 Sexual Offences Act legalised homosexuality, so there was less of a need for a secret language once it was then legal. In the 1970s, gay liberation movement did sort of argue that the language is quite old-fashioned and sexist. Which is fair enough. There are quite a few words that are quite sexist and quite old-fashioned, but it's kind of understandable, the sort of time period that it was used in. And it was still used on ships, so less of like being used for gay people, but used by people on ships until the 1980s, which is pretty cool. So it was popularised by a radio comedy show called Julian and Sandy, which ran from 1965 to 1968. So it was on a comedy show called Round the Horn, which was basically about this character called Kenneth Horne. It was just like a kind of sitcom type thing. So Hugh Paddock and Kenneth Williams played Julian and Sandy, who were two unemployed gay actors who lived in this character Kenneth Horne's flat, and it was basically just a sitcom about them all like living together. It's quite funny. I've listened to like little bits of it like in research for this. It's quite funny. I would recommend like going and checking it out if you're interested. But the characters Julian and Sandy, and sometimes Kenneth Horne, but because he's like a straight character, it's always portrayed as him not really understanding what they're talking about. They used that in the show, so it was really successful. They were a really successful comedy act, and it was really quite amazing that they were such mainstream entertainment. They were quite feminine gay characters, and like being gay was still illegal, and they used like Polari in the sketches, so it's pretty amazing that they were in such mainstream entertainment at the time. And there's a little bit of a revival at the moment in Polari, because there's been some recent stage shows of Round the Horn. Obviously not at the moment, but before COVID. So yes. So I thought I would go through very briefly the historical context around laws around homosexuality, because one, I find it like really interesting. I think it's really interesting, and also I think it's quite important to understand why having a gay language was so needed in this time. So in 1533 we had the Buggery Act. This was the first legislation that criminalised sexual acts between two men. This was just due to like general homophobia and heteronormativity, but then also they had this idea that gay sex would make our nation too feminine. And then in 1888 we had the Criminal Law Amendment Act. So this criminalised acts of gross indecency with male persons. So this is actually the law that sent Oscar Wilde to prison. It is pretty much the same as the first one, but just sort of updated language, really. And then the Sexual Offences Act in 1956 was about importuning for immoral purposes. So basically, if you were a man hitting on another man in public, even if it was like in a gay bar, that was illegal. Like you could be arrested for that. And then the Sexual Offences Act in 1967 for England and Wales, 1980 for Scotland, and 1982 for Northern Ireland. This decriminalised sex between men in private over the age of 21, which was a good thing. Like that was good, but it was kind of more done as a bit of a pity thing, because a lot of the times two men would like have sex and then one of them would blackmail the other one into like, doing whatever they wanted, because if they told everyone then they would like go to prison and stuff. So it's kind of more of a pity thing to sort of stop people like gay men from being in situations of exploitation. And also they thought that if they decriminalised it, they would be more likely to come forward for psychiatric help. So like it was slightly progressive, but not really for the right reasons. And then we had Section 28, which is called Clause 2A in Scotland, of the Local Government Act in 1988. This made it illegal to promote homosexuality in schools. So basically the way that it's written, if you read Section 28, is the promoting the teaching of the acceptability of homosexuality as a pretended family relationship. So we couldn't have LGBT education in schools during like sex ed or relationship education. If there were any teachers that were LGBT, they weren't allowed to be out. And it also meant that teachers couldn't prevent homophobic bullying, because if a kid was being bullied for being gay, then they couldn't prevent that, because that then acknowledged like homosexuality. Awful, horrible thing, and I have lots of opinions, but we're not going to get into that. And then in 1994, they lowered the age of consent from 21 to 18 for gay men. There's never been an age of consent for two women, like ever. It's 16 now, I believe, because like it's 16 for like everyone. But before that, there was never really like they never really talked about like an age of consent for two women, which I just think is bizarre. But anyway, many MPs were sort of disgusted at them changing the age of consent to 18 from 21. Many were in favour of keeping the higher age of consent, but it did get passed. And then it wasn't until 2001 until the age of consent was lowered to 16, which is obviously the same as it is for straight people and the same as it is now. And for context, the age of consent for heterosexual people was made 16 in 1885. So it took them a good long time to get to that. But so basically that just sort of helps to understand why people needed to use a secret language to sort of hide their sexualities, because it was really heavily policed and very criminalized. And I also just think that it's really interesting. It's just really interesting to have that knowledge of those kind of things. So now we're going to go on to the fun quiz. So basically I'm going to give you the Polari word, and some of them will be words that like you'll have heard now because we still use them in the same context or in different contexts. Some of them will be words that we don't use anymore. But I'm going to give you the word, and then we can like discuss what you think it means, and then I'll put up the word like in a sentence, and then after that I will tell you what the word means. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one is Omi.
Grandma. You're so German. That's what it means in German.
Anybody else have any other ideas?
I have a Polari glossary in this room, so it feels like cheating.
Good luck.
Would people like it in a sentence?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is Omi in a sentence. So, how are you getting on with your new Omi? I hope that it's pronounced Omi. It might be Omi. I don't know.
Partner?
But
Roommate?
roommate, partner.
Car.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
Does each letter like stand for something? Like
No, it's not an acronym.
I don't know, job, maybe? Like how are you getting on with your new job? But I don't know.
Job, yeah. Shall I tell you?
Yes.
So it means man.
Huh.
So Omi just means man. I googled pictures to put on these slides, and this is the picture that I got for the man. Me and my girlfriend Neve, who's on this call, decided that we were going to name him Victor. So this is Victor. Victor is going to be helping me out throughout the rest of the presentation. We got a little bit carried away with the editing, and we've realised that we found it very funny, but nobody else is really going to find it very funny because it's just stupid. But anyway, this is Victor.
I'm sure we will.
Can't wait.
But yeah, Omi means man. So okay, the next one is Polone.
Polish cologne.
Phone?
What was that? Sorry.
No, because they weren't around then. What I think rubbish or nonsense.
Rubbish or nonsense?
Baloney.
This is Polone in a sentence. What a beautiful Polone.
That could be anything.
I know. I'm sorry.
Not
I'm very
rubbish or nonsense then.
Yeah. Horse.
Any other ideas?
Alone.
Boyfriend or
Boyfriend?
girlfriend.
House?
House.
Outfit?
So Polone means woman. I can't remember what we decided to call her. Neve, what did we decide to call her?
I think it was Deborah.
I think it was Deborah. Okay.
Ah,
Yeah, there you go, Mum.
hi, Deborah.
But she doesn't come up again. We were less bothered about her apparently. But yeah, Polone means woman. Yes. Okay.
Omi
So
and Polone.
hopefully knowing Omi and Polone will then help you with this next one, which is Omi Polone.
Bisexual.
A queer person.
No, but good guess.
Mommy, Mom.
A queer person.
Masculine.
A trans person. Non-binary.
So this is it in a sentence. I'm an Omi Polone, but I don't want you to take that as me saying that I'm an Omi Polone because I'm not.
Straight woman.
Oh.
Like she's a man's woman, or she's very, very masculine.
Oh, I mean that is a good idea. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So an Omi Polone is a gay man. This is little Victor with his little rainbow above his head now to show that he is gay. So it's interesting that they saw a gay man as being a mix of a man and a woman. And it's interesting that, like you guys have said, non-binary or transgender, because that's what I thought when I first saw it as well, as like being somewhere in between gender-wise. But they've seen it as sort of being somewhere in between, like sexuality-wise, which is quite interesting. I thought this might be some sort of reason towards why the gay liberation movement might have thought it was a little bit sexist, this sort of idea that like gay men had to be like, were seen as like feminine. But I think it's important to see it as a product of its time, and it did come about for, you know, LGBT people from the 30s to like 60s. So like it kind of makes sense that would be the thought. But I thought it was really interesting. But I also thought it would mean like transgender or non-binary as well. So okay, so next one is
As far as I'm aware.
Kazi.
Kazi. Toilet.
Yeah, well done.
Yay!
So this one is one sec. I need to use the Kazi.
That's
So
what
it's
we
also
used.
Yeah, that's
Also
one that I've heard people say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
weirdly enough, I think I've heard it from like the old Carry On films.
yeah.
Yeah, they definitely use it in those.
So Kazi is a Polari word It's also spelled Khazi. These are little like portable toilets that you can take whilst camping. I know this because I go camping. They're called kamikazes. So yeah, that's a Polari word. So well done, Mum. Okay, the next one is crimper.
Something to do with hair?
Yeah, I definitely used to have a crimper for my hair.
I don't
So
know if
in
they
a
had
sentence-
those when this word
I would love
came
it if this
about.
meant something completely absurd and you're just like, oh yeah, I used to have that in my hair.
So it in a sentence is, I have an appointment with a crimper tomorrow morning.
Oh, like a hair.
A hairdresser.
Yeah, hairdresser. I'm assuming that it comes from crimping hair. You can also, like, as Kit was saying, you can buy crimpers for crimping hair.
It is
Yeah.
So yeah, very good. Well done.
Hairdresser, crimper.
Okay, eek.
Mouse.
Ah,
It doesn't mean like or like any of those things. This sorry.
Eek.
This one's one of my favourite ones, actually. I think it's really cool.
It's not related to eek as in like EKE, like eke out a living, is it?
No,
Okay.
Is it to do with food?
it is not to do with food.
See what it should be.
In a sentence,
This one's definitely in like that one Smith song. I can only remember what the other one means.
eek in a sentence is OMG, look at his eek.
Does it mean penis?
It does not mean penis, though. There are a lot of Polari words that are specifically very sexual. I've tried to take them out because I think they're a little bit less interesting, and also I didn't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable if people didn't want to talk about like specifically sexual things. But there are a lot that mean like, penis and sex and all of that kind of thing. But I thought that the other ones were kind of a little bit more interesting. So no, it does not mean penis. It is not nose.
Car.
Nope.
Clothes.
It means face. So this is Victor with his little rainbow to show that he's gay, and this is us pointing to his face because we thought that was really funny. It's not, but we thought it was funny. So it comes from backwards slang.
The presentation, and that's
So-
what matters.
Huh?
We had a good time making it, and that's what matters.
We very much did. It took a very long time to remove the background of that rainbow, though, I will say. So yeah, it comes from backwards slang. So face backwards is ecaf, and then this is then shortened to eek. So I find it quite interesting how, like, nowadays a man could say that another man has a nice face, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he's gay. But in the 50s, that would very much have just not been okay. Like, if a man had gone up to another man and been like, "Wow, you're really pretty," that would not have flown. So they had to have secret words for like talking about other men's attractive faces. I think that's really interesting, and I think eek sounds quite cute. Okay, so the next one is glossies.
Magazines.
Yeah, well done. In a sentence is, can you pick up the glossies while you're out? Means magazines. So in reference to like the glossy paper that magazines use. Again, this is another one that I feel like
She said something
isn't
That's what my gran calls magazines.
Yeah. Glossies.
And also it referred to yellow pages, like the yellow pages as well, I think. But I think obviously we don't really have the yellow pages anymore because everything's just like online. We don't really need to use them. That it sort of became to mean more just like general magazines. But yeah, obviously they're printed on like glossy paper, so glossies. Okay, the next one is ogles.
Glasses.
Eyes.
Nope. It is eyes. Well done. So you have beautiful ogles. Ogles means eyes. So I'm assuming it comes from like ogling. Oh, sorry, this is Victor, and then this is his eyes. There you go. So to ogle at someone is obviously to look at them, but if you're going to ogle at someone, it kind of implies a little bit that you're staring at someone because you like fancy them, which is where I think it sort of might have come from. But yeah, ogles. I think that's really cute. Right, this next one, I said the other one was my favourite, but this next one is actually my favourite. Ogle fakes.
Glass eyes?
No,
glasses.
it is glasses. Where did you get your ogle fakes from? I just really like the thought of glasses being referred to as fake eyes. I just think that's really funny. And Neve also came up with ogle goggles as an alternative.
I like
Which I
that.
think is equally as funny.
Ogle
But I
goggles.
just love how they were like, we need to have a secret word for glasses. What about just like fake eyes? I just think that's funny. Okay, the next one is Scarper. This will be one
Run
that you-
away.
Yeah,
to run away, yeah. So like the police turned up and he scarpered to run away. So this is Victor with his little rainbow, and then this is Victor running away from the rainbow so that people don't know that he's gay. So we still use this word today. We use it in its same context, scarpered. I can imagine it was used a lot when the police were around, like, you know, the queer people were like hanging out together and then the police were around. I can imagine you'd be like scarper.
That's so
yeah.
cool.
But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting.
No idea.
Okay, Varda.
Father. I'm just thinking what it sounds like. It's not very practical.
This one is a difficult one. Do you want it in a sentence? So in a
Yes.
sentence, it's Varda is eek.
Look.
Yeah, look.
Mm.
So I think that it comes from Italian. I'm not going to try and pronounce to look in Italian, but when I put it through Google Translate, it sounded to Garda, to Varda. So I think that that's like maybe where it's come from, because a lot of Polari does come from Italian. But I also don't know. I tried Googling it, but I couldn't find any sort of reference for where it's actually come from and why it is that. So it might not be that, but that's just my idea. So like if somebody was talking about a man, like if a gay man was talking about another man that they thought was attractive, they'd be like, oh, Varda is ogles, which would be like, look at his eyes. So yeah. Okay. Betty bracelet.
Oh, a bracelet that lesbians wore?
It's not, but I feel like it should be.
Handcuffs?
Yeah, handcuffs is like sort of right, but it doesn't quite just mean handcuffs.
Restraints.
So in a sentence is, watch out, Betty bracelet's on her way. So then think about handcuffs and think about who it is that could be used.
Police.
Yeah, so Betty bracelet is a policewoman. So Betty is obviously a woman's name. Bracelet meaning the handcuffs they used to arrest people with. I just thought that was really cool. So again, obviously, sort of being queer, being illegal, having to sort of run away from the police and make sure that you were not endangering yourself was quite important. So they have quite a lot of words for like police and stuff like that. But I thought Betty bracelet was kind of cool. Okay, polar pipe.
Your voice?
I can see where that's come from, but not quite.
Is it a cigarette?
Is not, no.
Telephone?
What was that, sorry?
Telephone?
Yeah, that's right. So I'll give you a bell on the polar pipe tomorrow. So polar comes from obviously the name of the language, so you can sort of see how that means like chatting, talking, and then pipe being telephone. So polar pipe is a telephone. Yeah, that is it. Okay, the next one is plate, and it doesn't mean plate in the context that we know a plate to be. Like, it doesn't mean a plate.
Your head.
It is not your head, no.
Feet.
It does mean feet. Well done.
So it's Cockney rhyming slang for feet is plates of meat.
Yeah, there you go. So I couldn't work out how to put this in a sentence, so I just put he's really into plates. I wanted to put he has a plate fetish, but Neve thought that was too obvious. So he's really into plates is what we came up with. But yeah, Mum, you are right. It does come from Cockney rhyming slang. Plate of meat means feet. They've used quite a lot. They're used from quite a lot from Cockney rhyming slang as well. So, yes, well done. Okay, the next one is fantabuloso.
Brilliant.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just a really gay way of describing something as good. I honestly don't think that saying fantabuloso for great is a discreet way to show somebody that you're not queer, but you know.
I think most people would know what that meant.
Yeah, I think that we should bring it back. Like, I think that we should just say that in general.
Fantabuloso.
I think fantabulous does get used nowadays.
Yeah.
The O at the end would be just, you know, a little bit better.
Yeah.
Or
like, it's a little bit more gay.
It's also a good way to signal to other queer people that you are queer.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, next one is bod.
Body?
Yeah. So Vada is bod. So basically, yeah, body. Bod is just shortened to bod, and then this is me pointing at Victor's body. Because once we started doing the arrows, we decided that we needed to continue to do the arrows. So, yes, that's basically it.
We've made a choice, and we have to stick with it.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, the next one is Rhea.
Hair.
Here.
Yeah, well done. You guys are so much better at this than I was at this, because I was trying to like challenge myself before I like looked at the answers, and I got literally none of them. So yeah, so you've got great Rhea. Again, this is backwards slang, so hair written backwards is Rhea. And that's Victor's hair, in case any of you had forgotten what hair looks like. Okay, the next one is boner. It doesn't mean boner.
Pretty.
Like bona fide?
It comes from bona fide, but it doesn't mean pretty.
Genuine.
So, yeah, pretty much. So, like, it basically just means good. So it comes from Latin, bona fide, meaning genuine or real. And you can still find some hairdressers that are called bonaria, which means good hair. And that comes from Polari, so that's really cool. I guess you could also take it to mean, like, boner, meaning good. Okay, so the next two are acronyms. So each of these letters stand for something.
NAF is not
available.
Not gone.
It just means not good, but I don't know what the
It
words
means
are.
straight.
Not available for friendship.
Not friendship.
No, it means not free.
So you would say like he's naff.
Not available for
For
friendly adult fun time.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it means not available for fucking. So it's basically like a straight man.
I was right.
So like one person might be like that guy over there, Vada so boner. That guy over there looks so good. And then one other person would say, "Oh, don't waste your time. He's naff." Now we use the word naff to mean rubbish. Is it heterophobic to refer to the straights as rubbish? I don't think so.
No.
No, that's just
And then we decided how are we going to do this. So we just gave Victor his rainbow and then put a cross through it.
Oh,
Victor. But yeah, I just think that that's really cool that that's a word that we use now to not mean that in the slightest, but that's like where it came from. It might have been that at the time NAF did mean rubbish and they just like took that and used it as an acronym. So it might have been that they already like in general use there already was the word NAF to mean rubbish, or it might be that came after it from this. I'm not actually sure. But yeah, so this is the last
agenda.
This is the last one. This one's also an acronym, and it's camp with a K, and it doesn't mean like camp.
Cool, amazing, magnificent person. Cool with a K is extra cool.
It's much less wholesome than that.
Oh.
I can't think of a single word starting with K all of a sudden.
In a sentence, it would be he's a camp.
A member of law enforcement?
Nope. It's very much not that. That's so funny.
Is that a criminal then?
No. Well, it was criminalised. Whether we would call them criminals is a debated matter. But it stands for known as male prostitute. So referring to someone as camp would mean that they are a male prostitute. The use I then found like the use of the word camp to refer to like a man with feminine qualities. I then was like, well, where does this come from? Quite disputed. Nobody really knows. But basically, some people have said that it comes from camp with a K, and the French verb. I'm not going to try and pronounce it, but like you can read, which is to pose in an exaggerated fashion. And then other people say that it was first recorded in the Oxford English Dictionary in 1909. So it could be that like camp to refer to a man with feminine qualities could come from Polari, or it could not. I couldn't really find any sort of actual determined thing, but I just thought that was really interesting. And then again, we were struggling what to give Victor for this one, so we gave him his little rainbow, and then we gave him $1.
Wow. That's a lot of money. He's doing well.
It's a pretty good side hustle.
But that is basically it for my presentation. So Lily, if you want to stop filming this bit, because the end is just like announcements for like society stuff.